Welcome to our YouTube channel on Success and Women. Women helping women.
Come join us.
See you soon. Welcome to this week's episode of Success and Women. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
And we're going to continue our conversation, ladies, that we had last week on empowerment because there's so much more to talk about. But before we get started, Andrea's got her tip of the week.
Hi, ladies. Hope you had a great week. I know Linda and I did. We were cruising.
And we hope that you got to watch some of our Instagram and TikTok posts.
Yes, I hope so, because that would have, uplifted you and maybe encouraged you to take a cruise also. Anyways, my tip this week is, you know how much I love to bake and cook, and especially with cakes and a meringue, you need to separate your eggs, and it's always a problem. If you don't separate them properly, especially for the meringue, you have a flop. And I remember, it's funny because my mom made lemon meringue pies all the time, and one of my favorites. But if the meringue flopped, which is another good tip, she would throw the meringue in the lemon mix. And it made it nice and fluffy. Actually, I really, sometimes I do that on purpose. And it made it like a fluffy lemon.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyways, I found this great tip to separate them easily is to use a funnel with a small opening. And you crack the egg in, and the white will just come right out, and boom, you've got the yellow.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that a great tip?
Now, I don't have a funnel for this place, but I do have a funnel back in Canada.
Well, at the dollar store, there's so
no,
many
but that's
cheap.
what I mean. It would be worth getting because I make the key lime pie while I'm in Florida, not the lemon meringue, which I make back in Canada. But that's a great tip.
Isn't it?
Wow, I'm going to have to try that. Because I was actually thinking about buying one of those egg separators when I was making the key lime for your dinner party a couple of weeks ago. I actually, was going back and forth, because you really do have to make sure. But in this case, it was the opposite. I needed the egg yolks and not the egg whites.
Okay.
But I know when you're trying to make meringue, you cannot have any of that yellow in there.
Exactly.
It does make it a flop.
Yeah, so it's a great tip.
Anyway, so on our conversation that we've had recently on empowerment, I love the conversation because, even though, and Andrea and I were doing a little bit of research, because we grew up during the 60s, it was a time, and we were younger, but it was a time when women's movement was actually making a difference to empower a lot of women.
Well, they had the civil rights movement, we had the women's movement. It was a very, very changing decade, the 60s. So many things happened, so many great changes.
Do you know what? It just reminded me, one of my favorite movies is Same Time Next Year. And I know that really it shouldn't be because it's about somebody that has an affair for like 25 years.
Ooh.
But what was interesting, because it went over a period of time, and it started, I believe, in the late 50s, and it took you into the 70s, but they went through the 60s, and this prim and proper young married wife, actually, when she first started having this affair, they met every year, but in the movie, they just show you about every 5 years. She comes as like this hippie girl wearing a bra. And do you remember the time when people because women just felt like, well, it's their body. And if they didn't want to support their breast with a brassiere, they weren't going to.
That's right.
And so this was also in the movie. But it was to show the power that she felt, because she was a married woman. She had children. But it was her liberation, I'll say, that no, she didn't want to wear a bra. She wasn't going to. And of course, she's having the affair with a very stuffy accountant.
Oh, no.
And so when they were first embracing, I'll say, and he's like,
woo!
And he's feeling, wait a minute, you're not wearing a bra. I mean, it was kind of an important scene because for women, we needed to kind of have something that said, all make the decisions. And we were talking about the pill.
The pill.
How that changed a lot of women
Oh.
and empowered them now to take control over their bodies.
Exactly. I mean, I remember when, and it's funny because in those days you had to have permission. You had to have a parent's signature if you wanted to go on the pill. And I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? You know, and
So that was under a certain age then? Because I don't remember
I think
having
it was
that.
under 18. Maybe.
Okay, because
But,
I didn't go on the pill until
yeah,
18.
oh.
But you know, I'm just looking back at my mom, and my mom didn't actually get to go on the pill until, I'll say, almost my youngest sister. And she ended up, because it was at a time when my mom's mom died, she died in her 50s, that I guess she missed some pills and stuff, and she ended up getting pregnant. But her whole entire married life was basically, she had kids, she had sex, she had kids.
Exactly.
And
That's
there was
the
no
way it was.
control,
There was
right?
no control. So that kind of dictated what their life was going to be, like stay-at-home mom, right? And so that really liberated women, and it gave you a choice to have children or not, which men were not happy about. And that started the whole movement. Women started entering the paid workforce, you know, and that didn't sit well with a lot of men. So a lot of strong women stood up and said, no, you know, we don't want to sit at home and have babies. We want to work, because it's not for everybody. There's some men that want to stay home.
Now, nowadays especially, I
know.
find
But I
there's a
think
lot
back
more.
then they might have, if the woman could have supported them, but it was unheard of. It
But,
was embarrassing.
but I have to tell you, Andrea, when I was married during the 70s, and I went back to college, I mentioned this on the last episode, I went to college and finished my college when I was married. And at that time, my husband said, you know, if you work and keep the money and everything else. Now, I never did see another pay. Basically, we always had it planned what our incomes would pay for. But that wasn't the point. The point was, even back then, my husband at the time felt threatened if I was progressing in my career.
Sure.
Because he went to high school and I'll say almost finished. I think he might have been short one credit, but he didn't need it for his job, and he made very good money. He made a good living for us.
Right.
But even though he was comfortable with me being in the workforce, he was only comfortable to the degree that I made less money than he did. So even back then, he was
They felt threatened.
Yes.
And it's almost like if they were talking to another man, or, you know, like, oh, your wife works, and she
Because
makes
still
more
a lot
than
of the
you,
women
you
didn't
know.
work.
No.
Even when I was married,
no,
there were
lots of
still
women.
They didn't.
And the only reason why a lot of the men allowed the women to go to work.
I love that
Yes.
word, allowed.
It's
Yeah,
true,
like,
because at that time,
Yeah.
is because they did need a second income, because prices were going up, and they couldn't cover the costs of like having a home, or
And the children.
the children, or a vehicle, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like you say, you go out and work, but you know,
To a point.
To a point, you know, and you know, and then you come directly home after and do what you do. So it's never been a fair world for women, you know, and there's still women today fighting
In
marching.
2024,
Right.
we're still getting where there's a lot of inequities.
Definitely, unless you're somebody like huge, like a lot of the singing stars and athletes like Serena
But-
Williams, or like
True.
Taylor Swift, like they've done a lot for the
women.
music business
Yeah.
and for women, and getting. I think there was a big thing about the music free, and they stood up for no, you know, we need to get paid for that, and what, I don't know the whole story, but you know, we still fight for so many things.
And I was watching actually on YouTube recently, and there was a black lady talking about in the movie industry, and you're talking in 2023, and I saw this in 2024, that there's still a lot of inequities when it comes to women having acting roles in major pictures and not being treated the same as a man.
Right.
In the
I wonder
sense
if that
that
was
they're
Viola Davis, because I think I saw her on speaking about something.
there may have been more
Maybe
than
her.
one, but
Yeah.
the point is, this is 2024. And
Right.
women are still being treated like second-class citizens. And
Right.
if you're a colored person, you might even be treated again like a third-class person.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened
Right.
to, I'm going to say, the equality that we've been fighting for so long? Not just for women, but for people of color.
Yeah.
We should all be treated the same way.
Right.
Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're colored or you're white, it doesn't matter.
Right. If you're qualified
If
for
you're
a
qualified,
job, you're
yeah.
qualified.
And these women that were in the movies were doing, I'm going to say, they weren't like the second sort of string actor in the sense of they were the
No,
stars.
they were the stars.
They were the main characters in these movies.
Because
and still,
unfortunately, basically right now, it's still, the world's run by very wealthy men. And
some wealthy women
some wealthy women, but
that are still treating that, I'll say, other women.
other women,
Yeah,
Yes.
not as equals.
because they haven't had power long enough to enjoy it. Like they're still like threatened by maybe another woman stepping into their spot. Whereas men have always been up there. They've got their little man's world and their little clubs, and they call the shots in a lot of places.
Certain industries.
I mean, we've had some really great, strong women
Yes.
like Queen Elizabeth,
yes.
Margaret Thatcher. Those are all women that really, really were beyond their time. When Queen Elizabeth came into power I think it was in the 50s or
Yes.
something, and it made for girls like us, little girls like us, saying, "Wow, she's the Queen of England," and she
Yeah.
was a real force to reckon with. She just didn't sit on her throne and be pretty.
Yeah.
She made a difference. And Margaret Thatcher, she was something else. So I think that the more we see women in power doing good things, like even in the fashion world, you look at Chanel. She paved the way, and
Or if you look in the cooking, because I bring her up all the time,
yes.
Julia Child, back in the 60s, not only did she write a cookbook, but she, in a man's world, got herself on TV and got the cooking show going.
right.
That was
So
like
if you were-
pioneering,
Yeah,
because
if you
women
were-
stayed home and cooked.
Yeah, so if you were a young woman and you thought, I'm really good at this, maybe I can make money, but it was unheard of. But when you saw somebody like Julia Childs, it gets the ball rolling. And that's what bothered me about that when the movie came out, Julia Childs, there was some women that loved it and praised it. And then there was other women that said, "Oh, they just set us back another 50 years
Yes.
from in the kitchen." But no, she showed that with her cooking skills, she could really lead the way, and she could provide and make money.
But that's what I was going to say. She was a career person
A career.
as well.
Right. So
So teaching women.
that's the problem with women, you see. You have
Yes.
the ones that criticize
And
her.
I was going to say, yes, all of a sudden. And
Why would you criticize her?
So ladies, you got to remember that it's women helping women. We want to empower you
Yes.
to do and pave the way for your children and your
Especially,
daughters,
yes.
and your neighbors' kids, and your younger
Wherever you
sisters,
can.
wherever you can, because we have to support each other, not bring each other
Yeah.
down and criticize.
It's because, like with my daughters, when you brought that up, I have 3 daughters, and I've always said to them, find a career. You're going to need to work in the future. Find something that you love, pour your passion into it, be financially independent, then think about a husband, a marriage, if that's what you want. Now, and they're very good at that. They've done that. Now, the other thing is choosing a career. Now, here's where men are, okay? So my daughter would say, well, maybe I'd like to do it. My husband, oh, yeah, right. That's the way men think, right? Like I said, Ed, anything's possible. If my daughter wanted to be the Prime Minister of Canada, why would you say, oh yeah, right? Say, that sounds like a good idea. Go for it. Like, just encourage, empower. And no matter what my children said, I'd say, let's look into it. Let's see what that would entail.
Well, it's interesting, and I told you this on last week's episode about my dad. He was ahead of his time. He could have written a book on parenting, but when I say parenting, encouraging his daughters to be and do anything. He didn't say, because I know in a lot of cases, women were supposed to be teachers, nurses, whatever I'll say female roles were, the typical female roles were, if you did work, those were the things. Where men could be doctors, lawyers, anything at all.
Pilots.
Yeah, and it's like, it was unheard of for women to even think about those kinds of things. But my dad never
and that's what you need to do, like with your children. Not only just encourage them, but do the research with them, help them, let them know that they are really supported in the way they think, because everybody's different. You might have a child that's creative with their hands, so there's all kinds of things that they can do. Help them figure it out when they're small, and because the younger they start to think about it and feel supported and encouraged, the chances of success go up.
Absolutely.
Tenfold.
And you know what? That's when you're empowering without even them knowing the word empowerment.
Right.
Because you're helping them to find the passion and helping them to grow that passion into possibly a career.
Exactly. Like my daughter, she was always a dancer from 3 years old. And I could see her passion for it. Like the other two were in it, but they didn't have the passion. So I always encouraged her and pushed her, and she wanted to sign up for this, sign up. Okay, let's do it. I mean, we would go wherever she had to go, and now it's her livelihood, and she makes very good money at it. And she said to me one time, she says, "Thanks, Mom. You really made my life a lot easier by encouraging me to keep dancing."
See, the difference is encouragement and not forcing. That's why she has 1 out of the 3 that continued into the dancing, because one was passionate, the other 2 weren't. No. So why force them to continue doing something that wasn't of interest?
When they were done,
they were done.
That's it. We moved on to something else.
Absolutely. And it's really those little things that you might not have had when you were growing up, but that you can now use. You know about these tools. You know that as people, and I'm saying because I look at myself as a person first and a woman second, because I don't like people to, I'll say, stereotype because I'm female. Then all of a sudden, because I still, Andrea, find that some men make me feel like my opinion, my thoughts don't matter because I'm a woman. Like, what the heck?
What do you know?
Yeah, what do you know?
But you have to prove them wrong.
Yes.
That's the thing.
But that's why always encouraging other people and you standing up for what you believe.
Not allowing those people to get in your head.
That's a good one.
Get in your head and think that, well, maybe they're right. No, they're not right. You are as valuable as they are. And maybe you don't
maybe
know.
more so.
Maybe more so.
Because behind every successful man, they always say, it's a good woman. Because we're
very good at encouraging, nurturing, empowering. So, we should do it to each other women and our children, not just
Don't feel threatened.
Don't feel threatened, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you don't know everything he knows, he doesn't know everything you know.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like we have so many stronger traits. We're very good at organizing, very good at detail. Multitasking, because that's what we do our whole lives. So we have things on them that, we have to feel pride in and put out there.
You know what's interesting? This morning, recently anyway, I was watching this, I get these email video clips from this business person, and it happens to be a man, but and he talks in general. He doesn't talk men, women, or anything else. He talks about people. And he says, like, sometimes you want to encourage your team members to become, leaders in whatever. And I remember working at this one particular company where the boss would be threatened if one of her subordinates actually did an amazing job at something because she felt it was a bad reflection on her. But like he said, he goes, when you've got a team, first of all, if something goes wrong, you take responsibility. If something is so-so, as a team, you're all to blame. But if something is really working, you encourage and you praise the team member. And you would do that with your kids and other women. Right. If they're doing something right, and especially if it's under you, you don't have to worry about getting the credit because your team is a good reflection of how much you are a leader. Mm-hmm. And so when
people always bloom,
and that's
when
right.
people praise them.
Yes,
I see it with my own kids. If somebody does something, or I say, "Wow, what a great job, Sarah!" Like I'm saying, I'm so happy you were here because I couldn't have done it without you. Like you can feel their chest,
and they want to do more for you.
That's what I say. The more you're appreciated, the more you'll work for somebody.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So empowerment is such a key part.
Yes.
Of, I'll say, growing your own success.
Right.
But imagine how much more you can do when you empower other women or your own kids. Mm-hmm. So we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Success in Women. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
We hope you
like,
share,
and subscribe.
Give us the thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week, ladies.
For sure.